Thank you very much for the warm welcome. Good morning, everybody. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak here today. It's, I believe, already my 5th time, and it's always a pleasure and an honor to speak here every year. And especially today, so it's my task to kick off the day, and hopefully I can give you some interesting insights regarding the early flood warning system of the city of Bonn, the former capital city of Germany. So I also need to apologize because I use my own design, and therefore you see the title now a second time. But before I want to speak about the city of Bonn, just a few words, maybe even regarding our motivation. So why we are all here, why we are sitting in this room, why are we attending the conference and spend 2 days with stormwater management. So in the recent past, I was confronted with several stormwater events. And for example, this video here, I have received from a colleague of mine whose mother has recorded it from the top floor of her house in a small village in Saxony in Eastern Germany, just roughly 3 weeks ago. And the eastern parts of Germany were affected by heavier rainfalls, and one of them caused this disaster. And it hit basically the people totally unexpectedly because nobody was aware of any floods in recent history. They live far away from rivers, and they were just not used to floods like that. And it's a good example what can happen if you are not prepared, and you just can hope that this is not your car, which was parked in the road here. The second event I would like to draw your attention to just happened a few kilometers away from my house. I apologize the German words. I live at the edge of the Alps, and there's also a few gorges, and some guided tours use the gorges for canyoning trips. So canyoning is if you hike along a gorge, if you jump from rocks into the water or upside down, so crazy things. And also there, just 3 weeks ago, a group was caught by surprise by insanely rising water levels. So really, they did not get any alarms, and unfortunately, you see here the rescue activities. 2 people have been injured, and one person only could be found dead after this event. And what happened, you can see here on the next slide. So it was really also some actually not too heavy rainfalls, but it's a small catchment area of the gorge, and it fully hit this catchment area, and the rainfalls caused a rise of the flow of more than 25 times within less than 30 minutes. And of course, in this time frame, it was just not enough time for the groups that were doing the canyoning in this gorge to get to safety. And these examples are, of course, sad, but I believe they give us motivation. We cannot prevent every disaster, but at least we can try to with all our possibilities. And I work for a sensor company, measurement company, so my key message, as always, is you need to be prepared, you need to monitor, you need to measure, because you can only manage if you measure. And, well, this is the key message here. Okay, now let's turn our attention to the city of Bonn. You see a panoramic picture here. You see a river, you see mountains, you see the skyline. The river is the Rhine that more or less crosses the city from the south to the north. But it's not causing the floods anymore because it's probably one of the best managed rivers in Europe. The floods in the city that already have been mentioned are caused by more than 30 small water courses that bring the water from both sides of the river to the Rhine. You see the green areas are hills. It pours down from the hills, it crosses densely populated areas, and these water courses really look peacefully in normal situations. What you can see here on these pictures, so really small water courses, but they can turn really into raging torrents during stormwater events. And it was also mentioned, this happened 4 or 5 times in the last 5 years in the city of Bonn. And well, finally, it accelerated the desire to be better prepared and to establish an early flood warning system. And this is what the city of Bonn has realized as of today. And it consists mainly of two parts. If we speak now about the monitoring network, so it's about the first part is the water level monitoring system, and the second part is the precipitation monitoring system. And if you define, well, that's a map of the monitoring network as it exists today. Again, you see the city of Bonn, you see the Rhine, and you see the green circles representing 18 water level stations, and the blue clouds stand for the 25 precipitation stations distributed over the whole area of the municipality of Bonn. So how did they get there? Of course, you have to take some considerations if you speak about the elements of a flood monitoring network. You have to think about sensors, which technologies do you want to use? You have to think about data loggers, communication, software solutions. So how do you want to visualize and analyze the data, and how do you want to disseminate the information that you derive from the data that you collect? Technical things like power supply, alarm thresholds, and also in this case, they also work with cameras, webcams, and also this is important to understand that these possibilities exist and can help you to get a good visual overview about the critical infrastructure in your network. So what has the city of Bonn done? Firstly, speaking about the water level stations, they have chosen a radar level sensor because it has no contact to the water itself. It is the only sensor that is mounted out of the water, cannot be damaged during a flood situation. Usually the bridges in municipal regions are not too high and not too big. Therefore also the installation is quite simple, and also the maintenance can be done out of the water. So it's a very secure sensor to provide water level data. Of course, you have always options, and one of the classic sensor in hydrological application is the pressure probe, the hydrostatic pressure probe. And here they also used a couple of those in their network. Also easy to install, very accurate. Of course, it needs to be mounted in the water, not out of the water. Very accurate, very cost effective, and also very reliable and commonly used water level sensor. Then, of course, one critical element is the communication. How do you get really the information across? So how can you remotely communicate, remotely transmit your water level and precipitation information? And usually here in these areas in Europe, you can rely on the GSM providers, so usually use GSM modems, 2G, 3G, 4G for data transmission, and those networks also have proven quite reliable in critical situations, because this is of course when they need to work. But yeah, as I said, most of the flood events, it has shown that the mobile networks keep running during critical situations. Options, of course, here would be like if you have internet connections, broadband, LAN connection, you can use that as well for data transmission. Or if you want to add an extra level of security to your data transmission, you could even work with satellite data transmission. Power supply, it's also quite obvious. Whenever possible, use main supply. If it's not possible, if it's too expensive, then of course you can also use solar panels, because our technologies, our sensors and data loggers have a very low power consumption, so it's no problem to supply them with solar panels of a rather small size. Installation is of course always critical, but it's very site dependent. So you have to check your sites, what you can do, who owns the property, do I need conduits, how do I need some vandalism protection for whatever reasons. And I just want to show installation as they really have been realized in the city of Bonn. So here 2 water level stations. You see on the extension arms the protective cover of the radar sensor. The radar sensor is mounted inside and looks vertically down to the water surface and can continuously record the water level information. Okay, then speaking about precipitation, also here, of course, we as a sensor company have different solutions, and the city of Bonn has chosen basically the best-in-class solution, the state-of-the-art technology, which is a weighing precipitation sensor, namely the Odd Pluvio, and this is basically nothing else but a bucket that sits on a scale, and the content of the bucket is weight, if precipitation falls into the bucket, the weight increases, and this can be recorded and evaluated as precipitation. So it has got no moving parts, it is very accurate, it requires almost no maintenance, and it can measure solid as well as liquid precipitation. So it's really a very, very reliable device that is used also here in Poland by many municipalities already. And yeah, it's just a good device. Of course, we also here have options. Maybe even less expensive, but also less less accurate. For example, a radar-based precipitation sensor that kind of scans the air above the sensor. So it has got a radar beam looking upwards, and if there's precipitation, if there are drops, some of the energy is reflected. And from that signal, you can also calculate an rain intensity that can be used for rain monitoring networks. As I said, not as accurate, but especially if you want to have more stations, more spatial information about your rain events, you can use these sensors and distribute them all over your catchment area. Also here a few pictures. So rain stations usually never are very exciting to show. It looks like a milk can from the Allgäu, from the Alpine regions, but it's a highly sophisticated sensor. Okay, so what do you do with the data then? The city of Bonn has created its own web page, which is also not open to the public, so it's not accessible for everyone, but only for the experts of the city of Bonn. And here, of course, they have access to the water level data as well as to precipitation data on different timescales. And they also have access to pictures. And now I just want to speak briefly about the webcams they are using, because they have identified critical points in their network, like narrow throughlets, culverts, other kind of infrastructure. And then they want to have the ability to check remotely if the situation is still okay. And therefore, a few of the stations have those webcams installed. The pictures are transmitted. Here pictures of the webcams. They are really connected to the data logger, to our data logger, and the data logger is responsible for transmission of the pictures to the web page, to the cloud-based web solution. And they also have a UV beam that allows good visibility also during the night. And if you enlarge one of these pictures, you can see, you can see what you can see. So here a critical infrastructure, and I want to turn your attention to these cat eyes. So they also have found a very simple and easy solution. These cat eyes are basically the physical representation of the thresholds, the critical thresholds on this station. And so they can also see the thresholds and check if they are crossed or if they're not crossed and how the situation is. And this works actually also pretty well during nighttime, so with low visibility, because they have the UV beams and the cat eyes obviously are reflecting. You also have then, during the night, a very good visibility of the situation. So very, very smart solution. Okay, last but not least, another information that is provided on this web page. It's the flow times, the theoretical flow times. So they have done the calculations. How long does it take if there's a water level increase in an upstream position or location in the network? then they know exactly how long does it take, at least if there are no extraordinary circumstances. So if everything is free flowing, they know exactly how long does it take until the water reaches downstream points in the measurement network, and they can coordinate the firefighters. They can coordinate the people from the municipal works service to send them out to the critical points and check or whatever, apply sandbags and yeah, just to coordinate the necessary mitigation measures, yeah, to manage such stormwater events. Okay, this well basically brings me already to the end of my talk today. I think it's a very good example what the city of Bonn has realized. They are now better prepared for stormwater events because they have a monitoring network in place. They measure, and thus they can also manage. And this, again, the key message for today from my side. Yeah, I hope this example was as much an inspiration for you as it was for me. And if you have the same challenge, the same problem that you need to solve, then just get in touch with us, with Hydromet, with Retencja PL, our partner here in Poland. We are around here, we are around in the future for you, and then we can start designing also your solution. Thank you very much for your attention.